Welcome to video number 2 in the From FAFSA to Financial Aid Offer, a Counselor's Roadmap series. My name's Jamie Borsch, and I'm joined by Kelly Dunn. In this session, we're focusing on FAFSA foundations and building confidence around the financial aid process. As counselors, one of the most important things you can do is help students and families feel comfortable navigating FAFSA completion and understanding why it's so important. Throughout this presentation, we'll address common misconceptions, highlight recent FAFSA improvements, and share some resources that can help support students throughout the process. By the end of the session, you'll be able to explain 4 key concepts to students and families. First, why submitting the FAFSA matters, even for students who might think they won't qualify for aid. Second, we'll tackle some of the most common FAFSA myths that often prevent students from completing the application. Third, we'll discuss why the FAFSA process is now easier than ever for most applicants. Finally, we'll review resources available to counselors, students, and families to support successful FAFSA completion. Before we dive in, we'd like to briefly introduce ourselves. I'm Jamie Borsch, Senior Director of Advising and Outreach at Herzing University. Joining me is Kelly Dunn.
I'm Kelly Dunn from Herzing University, Senior Financial Aid Advisor. One of the most common questions we hear is, why should I complete the FAFSA? The answer is simple. It's about much more than federal financial aid. The FAFSA is often required for Wisconsin state aid programs, institutional grants, and scholarships, and many private scholarship opportunities. Without submitting the FAFSA, students may miss out on funding they otherwise would have received. It's also important to remind students that submitting the FAFSA does not obligate them to accept any financial aid they are offered. It simply provides information about what options are available. We encourage every student to submit at least once so they can make informed decisions based on actual eligibility rather than assumptions. A helpful tip: encourage students and contributors to create their FSA IDs at least 3 days before beginning the FAFSA process. This can help avoid delays when it's time to complete and sign the application.
All right, next, let's address several common misconceptions. First of all, the FAFSA is not only for low-income students, it's for everyone. Although income impacts eligibility, the FAFSA is used to determine eligibility for many different types of aid, including grants, scholarships, and federal loans. Some institutions also require FAFSA information for merit-based or institutional aid. Another myth is that students must be accepted to a school before completing the FAFSA. In reality, students should file as early as possible. Schools can receive and hold on to FAFSA information while students are completing the admissions process or even before inquiring. We also hear that FAFSA is too complicated. Fortunately, recent simplifications have significantly reduced complexity, and many applicants can complete that form in less than 30 minutes. Finally, FAFSA is not a one-time application. Students must submit a FAFSA every year they wish to receive financial aid because financial circumstances and eligibility can change.
Here are 4 more myths worth addressing. First, FAFSA is completely free. In fact, the word free is the first word in FAFSA. There is never a charge to submit the application. Second, students are not required to borrow loans that appear on their financial aid offer. Students can choose to accept, reduce, or decline those loans based on their needs. Third, some families believe financial aid offices are withholding money. The reality is that financial aid administrators are advocates for students and must operate within federal regulations, state regulations, and institutional policies. Our goal is always to maximize eligibility for students. Finally, financial aid offers may change from year to year because eligibility, family circumstances, and funding availability can all change over time.
All right, let's clear up several additional concerns. Some students believe they need perfect grades to qualify for financial aid. While academic performance may affect certain scholarships, federal aid eligibility is separate from having straight A grades. Students do, however, need to maintain satisfactory academic progress once enrolled. This generally includes maintaining a minimum GPA, successfully completing coursework, and progressing towards graduation. Another misconception is that poor credit prevents students from borrowing federal student loans. Most federal student loans don't require any credit check. Families sometimes worry that parents who are not U.S. citizens will prevent FAFSA completion. The key eligibility requirement is that the student be eligible. Parent citizenship alone does not prevent FAFSA filing. Lastly, deadlines matter. Missing a FAFSA priority deadline may result in fewer aid opportunities, so we strongly encourage students to submit their FAFSA each year as early as possible. And remember, the worst outcome from completing the FAFSA is simply learning what a student does not qualify for. There's really no downside to applying.
One of the most important messages counselors can share is that the FAFSA has become substantially easier. The new FAFSA includes fewer questions, dropping from more than 100 questions to about 36 for many of our applicants. Enhanced skip logic also helps students avoid questions that don't apply to them. Contributor invitations are now simpler. Students can invite contributors by email, which makes participation more straightforward and easier for families. The new contributor portals allow each contributor to complete only the sections relevant to them, improving both security and ease of use. Direct data exchange with the IRS automatically transfers tax information, reducing manual entry and errors. The FAFSA also introduced the Student Aid Index, or as we call it, the SAI, replacing the former expected family contribution terminology, which was the EFC. Finally, some changes expand eligibility for Pell Grant and other aid programs, potentially increasing opportunities for students.
Fortunately, counselors are not expected to do all of this work alone. Financial aid administrators are excellent partners and welcome questions from both counselors and students and families. College Goal Wisconsin provides FAFSA completion events and supports opportunities that can help families complete the application. Federal Student Aid also offers guides, tutorials, FAQs, and official information directly from the U.S. Department of Education. Feel free to encourage students and families to use these trusted resources whenever questions arise.
One of the greatest strengths of WASFA is the network of financial aid professionals available across Wisconsin. If you already have a contact at a local financial aid office, continue building that relationship and don't hesitate to reach out with any questions you may have. If you don't have a contact yet, WASFA has organized representatives by CISA region so every counselor has access to a financial aid professional who can provide assistance and guidance. We encourage you to connect with your regional representative. These professionals are eager to support counselors and help remove barriers for students.
Thank you for joining us for this session on FAFSA Foundation and Confidence Building. We hope the information shared today equips you to better support students and families as they navigate the financial aid process. Remember, FAFSA completion can open doors to federal, state, institutional, and scholarship opportunities, and counselors play a critical role in helping students access those resources. We encourage you to continue exploring the From FAFSA to Financial Aid Offer, a Counselor's Roadmap video series for additional guidance and resources. Thank you for the important work you do every day to support student success.